Welcome to the channel. My name is Kubeir. I'm a CICC licensed immigration consultant, and this channel is everything to do with Canadian immigration news, updates, things you should do, things you definitely should not with regards to your Canadian immigration application. And I am back after a month of hiatus. Well, the fact is, whenever you move from what you usually normally do, the travel and everything else that goes with it tends to create a bit of a disruption. So my apologies that I haven't been able to keep this regular, but hopefully from this week onwards, we will be back to doing our weekly roundup. So welcome to the channel. Welcome to the weekly roundup. Once again, we're going to discuss about the week's things that have happened in Canadian immigration. First of all, the title. Let me just clarify. The title of today's video is Canadian immigration express entry system, is it dead? Or the future of express entry, is it gone? Is it finished? So before we go on, let me just clarify. In my opinion, it's not dead. And the reason why I chose that title is because the number of consultations that I do each day, there are so many people who are concerned, who are worried, who are thinking, well, should I just give up on express entry? My score is 500, my score is 504, my score is 510, my score is 595. Should I give up? Is express entry over? Should I look for other things? So that's the reason that the title, it's a question mark at the end. Is express entry dead? In my opinion, no, it's not dead. It's still there. It's alive. It's kicking. There is a lot of hope. There's a lot of expectations from this particular system of choosing the high factor points in terms of the human attributes and the personality factors. So just hold on to that. It's still not gone. We're going to talk about it more in detail, but a little bit of updates of what's happening, what's going on. I'm currently in India, in Hyderabad at this moment. So in-person consultations, if you're interested in Hyderabad, those are absolutely open. Next week, I am going to be in Surat and Ahmedabad. The dates are in the description box. So if you just scroll down to the comment section in this description box of this YouTube video, you will see the links to register for the free seminars. I think it's the 17th of February in Surat, and then on the 18th February, I think, yes, 18th February in Ahmedabad. That's what we are doing. We're doing free seminars there, also available for in-person consultations. So if you are in Hyderabad, Surat, Ahmedabad, then let's chat, let's talk, let's meet and see if you have any specific doubts that I can help you with during those in-person consultations. Please, this is the link. By all means, feel free to book. Now, let's get back to the order of business. So starting with the weekly roundup, let's very quickly go through whatever has happened in specifically this week, and then we're going to jump into some bigger subjects and topics about the changes that have happened with the international students. I'm not going to talk much about this because most of you already know what is happening there already. So there is nothing much to bring in terms of any additional news or update there. But express entry is definitely creating a lot of ruckus. It's a big, huge headache because a lot of people are just not grasping what exactly is going on. So we're going to talk more about that. So let's start with this one first. This is our weekly roundup presentation. So starting with the quote of the week, it's not about how bad you want it. It's about how hard you are willing to work for it. I mean, does it need to spell it out more clearly? Each day, with so many different people that I talk to, one of the major consultation points is, what are my pathways? Guys, first of all, if you're booking a consultation with me, or for that matter, any immigration lawyer, immigration consultant, please know that none of us, nobody has any secret pathways, secret doors that we can show you. Trust me, if I come to know of any secret pathways, I will be the first one to hop onto YouTube and make a video about it. But there aren't any. All you need to do is do of course, your own research, but be realistic about your factor points. Most of you are reluctant to make the big change, which is moving out of province. So first of all, Ontario is bad news for most of you. So when I'm saying Ontario is bad news, what I'm talking about is that there are not too many programs as far as Ontario is concerned. International Student Stream, Employer Job Offer Stream, of course, are two big programs or two big streams, but then you need an employer form. Most of the employers are unwilling to give it. And the reason for that is because their legal departments or the legal teams do not allow them to share their financial data with their employees. So they do not give you those employer forms. Without that, you cannot proceed. And then comes the factor whether they will conduct the general draw, whether they conduct the category specific draw, even within those streams. Most of you out there are probably not eligible, because with employer stream, there also is another factor that you should have 2 years of experience within the same NOC code, as well as your job offer salary should be meeting the median wage, which again, a lot of employers don't wish to do. So those two streams are not helping. So what I'm trying to tell you is it's not about how bad you want it. I know most of you, rather whoever is watching this right now, the reason why you have tuned up is because you are looking for some information, some crack of news, some update which will help you move forward, inch forward towards your permanent residency aspiration. The point is, are you willing to work hard for it? You want it bad enough, but are you willing to work hard enough, bad enough for it as well? Most of you are reluctant. Most of you just do not want. For example, so many people who I meet who are stuck at 470s, but they are lacking in some factor of IELTS or CELPIP or the English language. Just not willing to do that. I mean, sometimes it might take you once, twice, thrice, 4 times. I know of people who have done 10s and 20s and 30 times to, they've retaken their IELTS or CELPIP or whatever you want to call it, and then eventually have landed on the favorable side of things. So the work that you need to put in, that's what's going to matter. It will, at the end of the day, how badly you want it is not going to matter, but what you're going to do for it is definitely going to matter. So going back to this one, Canadian Immigration Weekly Roundup. Stay up to date on the news with us on all these platforms. Somehow we are on TikTok as well. So yeah, just give us a tinkle there. PNP draws. British. Excuse me. February 6th, BC conducted 4 targeted draws for skilled workers and international graduates through the BC PNP. Except for the postgraduate stream, you need job offer for all the streams in BC PNP. That's the main thing. And BC PNP also conducts very regular draws almost every week. So this is one of the most reliable PNP programs that you can have out there. The scores are known because you can always see the past trends. The scoring factors are known. The fact that you need a job offer is also a known fact. And yeah, I mean, once you score that, you know that you are going to get through. They do have certain criteria. They do have certain streams which are easier than the other streams. Childcare, construction workers, healthcare, all these streams, the minimum points can be quite low. 60 in healthcare and early childhood educator, 75 this time for construction. Otherwise, in other streams, it can go up pretty much because, again, very competitive. So BC PNP, good one to get through. Ontario, of course, what they have done is on the 6th of February, they conducted a human capital priority stream, which we all love to see because that is one of the very few PNP streams that does not need you to be in Canada, that does not need an employer job offer. It's pretty simple and straightforward. You just need to have a bachelor's degree or equivalency. You need to have 1 year of work experience in a primary NOC code. Within the last 5 years, if you're a federal skilled worker, within the last 3 years, if you're Canadian experience class, that's the only criteria that they have, right? And if your primary NOC code is within their range, then voila, you will get invited. This time, the healthcare draw was particularly interesting. Why? Because they went right down to 379 and the higher range was 430. Now, I've explained this in several of my videos before. The high range, in this case 430, is determined with the fact that what was the previous express entry draw. In this case, healthcare express entry draw was, I think, in October last year, and that was at 431. So Ontario pegs it at 1 point lower so that they don't have to waste any more of their notifications of interest. And therefore, 379 is on the lower end, which basically means that many invitations they wanted to issue. So therefore, 379 to 430. This was pretty good, right? Otherwise, imagine how many people are actually expecting an ITA with a score of 380s, 390s. You wouldn't have thought it's possible. But for healthcare, you guys, this is really rocking. I hope you make a good application because sometimes these kind of opportunities will not knock twice. So be very careful. Ontario in the recent past has also become very strict with their applications. Earlier, they were more flexible. Earlier, they had a bit of leeway. They would reach out to you. They would say, yes, you can do this. No, you cannot do this, or give us this documentation. Lately, they have become more stricter. And with that, please, this is only in your favor that you prepare a good application. Again, on the 8th of February, a couple of days later, Ontario then conducted not 1, not 2, but they conducted 3 draws. The first one being very important one, and that was the tech draw under the human capital priority stream. of course, a lot of you out there have been, holding your breath probably, waiting for this kind of a draw. And I wasn't particularly okay, and I have to be honest, and that's one thing that I do, right? Be honest and be transparent with you. I wasn't particularly excited about the tech draw. Hold on, I mean, no offense. I know a lot of you were absolutely anticipating, absolutely loved it, were waiting, especially the 471 and 472, right? You guys have been shortchanged before. The reason why, let me explain this to you. The reason why I was not very excited about this particular draw is because I do expect an IRCC's STEM draw somewhere around the corner. Obviously, I don't know when the next draw will be, but I anticipate one. Once the STEM draw does happen, all these people who have received the notifications of interest would probably receive an ITA directly in Express Entry as well. They may not want to continue with this Ontario's application. So it's $1,500 in some cases down the drain. In some cases, you might get it back depending on where your application is. And it's all these notifications gone down the drain probably. So what Ontario could have probably done is waited for the next STEM category draw from IRCC, then conducted a draw, and then probably the scores would have gone lower. But then again, this is just my personal opinion. Please don't get offended. It's not about me trying to nitpick as to why you received the invitation. It's just about trying to see the bigger, broader picture for everybody's betterment in this whole aspect of things. So it's just that I had to just sort of, because yeah, they had just conducted a draw in December. Had they just waited a little bit, they probably would have gone lower on the CRS score for this one. This one was at 471. So again, the range is 471 to 480. Number of invitations 2118. And then they conducted an employer job offer stream, international student stream. Thankfully, this was a general draw. 1182 invitations were issued, 78 was the score. And then they conducted another draw of the same international student streams with the employer job offer, issued 1,252 invitations. This time the score was 73, but this was for healthcare and tech occupations. So this time it was a category specific, but the score was slightly lower at 73. Again, the requirement is for the international student stream that you have to have a job offer in the NOC code that has been invited. Otherwise, a general category draw as well. And yeah, you need the employer form. That is the most important one. Manitoba on the 8th of February posted results of their 3 expression of interest draws, inviting a total of 282 candidates. Again, province of Manitoba has been very exciting in terms of their PNP programs. They do have a few programs. They have the international graduate stream. They have the skilled worker overseas, skilled workers in Manitoba stream. Collectively, all pretty good. Don't think too many people were invited here. It was only 282, and 151 letters of advice, LAA, were issued to the candidates who had declared that they had a close relative in Manitoba. So it was more of a specific attribute. So they identified applicants who have said that they have a closed relative in Manitoba. Only those were picked out, and 151 invitations were sent out there. The minimum score was pretty low, 619, pretty decent there, the score. And then they also issued 83 letters of advice to its international education stream. No score is required for that particular stream. Then they issued 48 letters, or rather 48 invitations to people in the skilled worker overseas stream, score of 713, which is pretty high there. Quebec. Well, Quebec also released the results of its draw, which was held in January. So you see, they hold the draw in January and then they issue the results pretty late. 1,007 people were invited. All invitation recipients were required to have a valid job offer outside the Montreal area. The second group of people who were also invited, this time they had to have the minimum score was 615, but they had to have a French score of NCLC 7. So yeah, for a lot of you who have been always still on the fence about French, well, I think the proof is in the pudding, right? And at least I have been screaming on top of the tower, if you want to call it, or top of the mountain, if you want to call it, that guys, French is going to be the way to go. I think for more than a year now that we've been talking about it, that French as a second language is going to give you a huge benefit. Not only with the Quebec, of course, the Quebec immigration programs are quite different, but even within the express entry, the French speaker stream scores drop down to 300s, right? Ontario has a French speaker stream. The scores can go pretty low. Saskatchewan gives you 10 extra points. You will start seeing other provinces also start looking to invite French category specific draws, or they will be start inviting people who have factor points in French. So even now, if you're on the fence about French, please bear in mind that French is the second national language of Canada. I know there are a lot of people who, whenever they see a French draw, they get pretty riled up and they start calling Mark Miller racist, or why is there a bias against French? Well, I think you're mistaken. French draws are quite limited. They will always be limited, even in express entry. There's a small number in express entry. It's not a very big number at the end of the day. This year, they have identified about 24,000 people. 25,000 people will be immigrating to Canada under the French programs outside the Quebec area. Now, these 24,000 is not an additional invitation. They're still part of the program. So whether it's PNPs, whether it's regular express entry draws, whether it's category-based draws, or specific French speakers draw, the total number that they're looking to invite is about 24,000. Of course, basically because they want to encourage Francophone migration outside the Quebec region. You can't really blame them. It's the country's language, second national language. They will do whatever they need to do to promote the language and the culture, of course. So if you have an eye on it, also keep in mind that 24,000 out of some 265, 270,000 people for the total economic programs, if it's only 24,000 for French, it's still less than, 10% of the total economic pathways, which basically means 90% is still for Anglophones, right? So don't hold it against the Francophones. It's not something that this is being biased towards it. It's just about having a bigger picture in terms of the Anglophones and Francophones in mind, and improving or increasing the Francophone immigration. Apart from that, if you're still on the fence, so you need to understand that French immigration, or when I'm saying French immigration, I mean the Francophone, encouraging the Francophone immigration outside Quebec will continue. This year's pathway already says it. 2024, 2025 pathway also has, the numbers also has Francophone immigration numbers quite clear. 2026 also has Francophone immigration quite clearly mentioned. The numbers are quite clearly mentioned. So it would be in your interest to consider French as a second language if you still wish to make this your path. But let's talk about express entry, because something's happening there as well, right? Recent data shows that Canada exceeded its target. This is not part of express entry. I do not know why we had the title there. Express entry is a completely totally different subject that we're going to talk about today. But in the year 2023, Canada exceeded its target for permanent residents. They actually welcomed 471,550 people against an actual target of 465,000. So they went above that number, and this was an increase of almost 34,000 people over the 2022 target, which was at 437,600. Of course, 2024's target, 2022 target. 2024's target is at about 550,000. And I think they're pretty much on their way to get to that target. They will, of course, we're already in the month of February, but they pretty much will get to that number as well. Yeah, and of course, these numbers include all immigration programs, all economic pathways. It includes the PNPs, the express entries, the non-express entry routes, the business immigration programs, the startup visas, the refugees, the family sponsorship. It includes all of that. And the total number for this year is approximately 500,000. That's what we're going to see. Ontario's OINP, Entrepreneur Stream, is now suspended. This was actually suspended in December. They didn't announce it. Now they've already announced it. And the announcement was made on the 5th of February. And they said that they will not be accepting any more new expressions of interest. Bear in mind that their quota for OINP Stream was about 200 applications. I think they're pretty much done with those Stream at this point of time. Well, that's pretty much for this presentation. Connect with us on any of the social media platforms: Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, if you have just joined this live stream, then please, once again, that's the link to book appointments in person. I'm in Hyderabad, then again on Surat, on the 16th and 17th, 18th and 19th in Ahmedabad. So in-person consultations available, free seminars in Surat and Ahmedabad, 17th, I keep mixing the dates, 17th in Surat, 18th in Ahmedabad. The link for the registration of those seminars is in the description. So please, by all means, hop in there, register yourself, and I will hopefully see you in Surat or Ahmedabad. Now, express entry, dead or alive. We want this alive more than dead. Now, whenever I talk about express entry, a lot of people jump the gun. Some people come, with their guns out blazing at me as if I am doing something wrong, or as if I am against the whole system or program. It's not that. It's very simple. Express entry is the most successful system that IRCC has developed ever since, if you go back into the history of immigration. It was the idea of the conservatives, and they started working on this whole express entry system in somewhere in 2011. By 2014, they stopped accepting any of the immigration applications. They returned everything back, which was the paper application happening, because 2015 onwards, 1st of Jan onwards, express entry started. Now, when express entry started, the whole funda was, or the whole idea was, to identify the highest human capital, right? Age, education, work experience, language skills. These would give you the highest points. Actually, the matter of fact is, and a lot of people also talk about LMIAs, a lot of people talk about this job offers and everything that goes with it. Did you know that until November of 2016, an LMIA could get you 600 points? 600 points. Can you believe that? Having an LMIA was as good as having an IT in your pocket. But then in November 2016, they changed that, giving an LMIA either 50 points or 200 points, depending on the NOC code that you get. So can you imagine 600 points just for an LMIA? But that's just keeping it aside. So over the years, express entry, as I said, has been very, very successful as a system. And of course, it manages 3 programs: CECs, Canadian Experience Class, which has the highest priority, then the Federal Skilled Workers, and then the Federal Skilled Trade category. Now, obviously, during the COVID, we saw lots and lots of different things that happened with express entry. In the month of February 2021, I hope you don't forget that, that draw of 75 CRS when they invited 27,000 people, that was phenomenal, right? Who would have thought? After that, they started conducting CEC specific draws, and then the PNP specific and the CEC specific, alternating between the two. And suddenly people thought or believed that CEC specific draws is going to be normal, or that is how it is going to be, and that is what IRCC is promising. No, it was a COVID measure. Again, I've always said that whatever Canada does, whatever IRCC does, is always in the favor of Canada. Why would you think otherwise? It's never in your favor. It's never in my favor. Whatever Canada will do, whatever the immigration department will do, whatever IRCC will do, will always be in the interest of Canada, of whatever at that point of time, the political agenda is. It's never going to be, and it's nobody's right. It's not your right. It's not my right. It's always a privilege in the sense of how it happens. So without feeling, or without just for a minute, give up that sense of entitlement and saying that this should happen. Why are CEC draws not happening? Why is this not happening? As a CEC candidate, already you get additional points for work experience. You get additional points for the language. Yes, I absolutely agree that if housing crisis was the biggest issue, and that is the reason why they're doing all these things, international students and making, everything that is happening, well, the best thing that they could do was to make some programs or do CEC specific draws, because CECs, by and large, majority of them are already inside Canada, and all they have to do is conduct the draws. There is going to be no housing crisis, pressure on the housing, because nobody's coming from outside. They're already inside Canada. They already have houses. But obviously, IRCC doesn't get that, right? So the point is that if IRCC could do it during COVID, CEC specific draws, and because it was a COVID measure, why wouldn't they do it now? That was one thing that I don't understand why they wouldn't do it. But to expect that CEC draw should happen, will happen, is something which we need to get more realistic about. IRCC has never said that they will do only CEC specific draw at any point of time. Yes, there is a class specific draw, they can do it, but they've never promised. So feeling that they should do it, or they will do it, or they will not do it, is something I guess is pretty much lost on them. But logic says, and if housing was the issue, if housing crisis was the issue, then CEC draws definitely make logical sense. I hope somebody gives Mark Miller that idea that, hey, you've been shouting on top of the roof that, we have to do something about the housing crisis and stop the international students, stop the spouses of the international students and whatnot. Why don't you start doing some more CEC specific draws so that a lot of people who are inside Canada can, move on with their statuses as well as not create any housing burden at all. But that is something for them to think about. Meanwhile, is express entry dead or not? This is, I think, one of the biggest issues, or rather the biggest questions for a lot of people who are in the 500 score range, right? 505, 510, 515. The fact is that you have gotten to the 500 range itself. You've done a great job, because getting to 500 CRS by itself is not an easy task. It's no mean task, right? I mean, it's quite difficult to get to 500 and cross 500. So you've already gotten there. If you just look at the pool breakdown, right? Just let's look at the pool breakdown. There are not too many candidates there. I mean, of course, there are a lot of them there. And what has IRCC done since January? They have conducted draws, which are, to be very honest, don't make much of sense. But let me just show you this. This is the pool breakdown, right? 601 to 1200. This was as of 30th of January when the last draw happened. After that, the PNP, I mean, I'm calling it the PNP draw because that's what it seems like. So 601 to 1200, those should have been played out. 534 people were there at that point in time. But this number has gone up a lot. 501 to 600, 7,926 candidates there. That's not a small number. And that number has been growing. Why? Because December, we didn't see much happening. January, we didn't see anything happening. The number of people that they've invited was ridiculously small. And that was only, again, I'm calling it a PNP draw because they issued invitations like 1,100, 1,200 kind of invitations. Let's see what did they issue. Previous rounds. Yeah, so they invited 730 in the last draw. Then they invited 1,040, 1,510. These were the last January draws, right? Total of about 3,000 invitations were issued in the whole month in terms of the regular or the general express entry draws. Of course, they also issued 7,000 for the French, bringing the total invitations for the month of January to a very, very generous 10,000. So the 10,000 number total invitations is not less or not small. But by and large, will they continue like this? No. Why not? Because, and let's understand that better. The total number of invitations that were issued in the year 2023 is roughly 110. I forgot the exact number. I'd written it down somewhere, but I can't find it. It's roughly 110,000 ITAs were issued. 110,000 ITAs were issued to achieve a total target of about 472,000 people who migrated to Canada. Now, 472 obviously includes spousals and refugees and businesses and startup visas, etc., etc. But the economic pathway was roughly 265,000 people. And IRCC achieved that number by issuing roughly 100-some thousand invitations. Of course, a lot of these invitations also will contribute towards the permanent residents who will be finalized in this year. But obviously, the ITAs are from January to December. The number of permanent residents keep rolling because the way IRCC processes the application. However, if this number was 110 for last year, you would assume or you would anticipate that IRCC will at least issue 95,000 to 100,000 ITAs. Okay, let's not. Oh, sorry. Let's be more conservative with our thought. Let's not be too overly optimistic. Let's say IRCC will at least issue 90,000 invitations. I don't want to go any more conservative on this because that will then sound more pessimistic than any optimistic at all. But with 90,000 invitations, and let's say they choose to give out a big portion of that to the categories because that is how they want to go. They want to go more category-based draws or STEM, French, agri, healthcare, etc. Have you noticed how many invitations they issue to the agriculture? Not too many. In the whole year, roughly about 2,000 invitations. I don't remember the exact number, but roughly 2,000. Transport categories, roughly again 2,000. The STEM categories, the category-based draws you're talking about, only category-based draws. STEM categories, they issued 5,900 in December, 500 in July, so roughly 6,400 there. French, of course, got a huge portion or huge chunk of the draws. But again, I don't remember the exact number, but about 13 to 15,000 approximately, give or take, that many invitations issued to the French. And then the healthcare. Healthcare also received roughly about 6 or 7,000 invitations in the total year. If I add all of this still doesn't add up to a very big number that would say, okay, I've got 95,000 invitations to issue, so all of these are for the category. No, which even if I say half and half, which again is not in the favor of the general draws, but let's say half and half, you will still have 45 to 50,000 invitations that will be issued for the general draw. For 50,000 invitations to be issued for the general draw, if I take over a span of 10 months, that means about 5,000 invitations each month. At least. Again, these are all approximate numbers. These are not fine. These are not absolute numbers. So I'm just going in a very, very speculative and an assumptuous mood. So roughly, even if I go with the general draw of 5,000 invitations each month, this numbers should start coming down. Wouldn't you agree with that, right? This number of 501 to 600 at 7,926, this should start coming down. Let's say IRCC next week wakes up, finally smells the coffee and say, on what day would that be? 14th of February, pretty lucky day, Valentine's Day. Let's say on 14th of February, Mark Miller is feeling all lovey-dovey and says, okay, I've made this, I've made life miserable for a lot of people. Let me finally come out and make this draw. And comes out with a general draw. Hopefully, I'm hoping that it's a bigger draw than just a 3,500 or 4,000 draw. Hopefully 5,000 kind of a draw. Once we start seeing those draws, once we start seeing the regular express entry draw, not the PNP kind of a draw, which they are somehow naming it as regular, but a proper regular express entry draw, you would start seeing these numbers, creeping down. 7,926 is as of January 30th. We are on the 11th of February. Probably this number would have gone up to 8,500-ish at that point of time, by the time the next draw happens, or probably even closer to 9,000. I do not know how many people are there at this point of time. But will 2 or 3 draws not clear out all 500s? Wouldn't that happen? Wouldn't that be logical to sort of assume? And if that is the case, why wouldn't 500s be cleared out? Because I've seen so many comments on Twitter which said that in this year, 2024, the scores will not drop below 500. Where are you getting that information from? It is not logical. It doesn't make sense. I mean, at least the numbers are not suggesting that. I mean, I haven't spoken anything, right? If that's what you're thinking. I'm not smoking anything. I don't even smoke for that matter. Neither do I drink. So it's not about me having spoken something and me having smoked something and saying all this. I'm just saying it sheerly out of what the numbers are suggesting, what the numbers are saying. And therefore, before we jump the gun, I know we are only in the month of February right now. And so far, only 3 or 4 draws have happened so far. All of the general draws, the 3 draws that they happened in January, were ridiculous to say the least, and they were all basically a PNP draw. They were only covering out the PNP nominations. Now, one of the reasons we have identified earlier was in December, there was a glitch in express entry whereby people who were upgrading or updating their French scores with the TEF language exam, they were not able to get the correct amount of points because TEF had changed their scoring factor effective 11th of December, which IRCC failed to update. But then last week, there was a draw earlier this month, there was a draw in the French category, which basically tells me that French draws, if the French scores have been updated, only then they would have conducted a French category draw. And with that assumption alone, that if that glitch has been resolved, and hopefully there is no other glitch in the system, we should start seeing a regular express entry draw pretty soon. I am forever hopeful. And by this, that is the reason why I would like to say that express entry is not dead. It is still alive and kicking. And by that, within the next few draws, I expect all 500s to be cleared out. Once the 500s have been cleared out, and hoping and praying that somewhere out there, IRCC chooses to conduct some back-to-back draws or some large draws that they did conduct last year as well in March 2023, where they did a back-to-back draw of 7,000 each, 3 draws in a row in 14 days. They invited 21,000 people. That again brings this whole equation that makes it so much more, it's so much more appeasing if you see that equation. So again, all speculation, of course, but that's my personal opinion based on all these numbers that I've been reading, on all these data, that everything that it is suggested. that express entry draws will continue. The general draws should continue. The scores should creep down. They will continue to have the category-based draws. So everybody who is within the categories will always have that opportunity. The STEM draws will happen. The healthcare draws will happen. The agriculture draws will happen. So many people have also been asking, what are the 2024 categories? Well, nobody said that the categories will change every year. Where did IRCC say that? So where are you getting this idea that what these categories are for 2023? What are the new categories for 2024? Nowhere did they say that. What they did say was that in February, after the last date of January working day, in Parliament, IRCC is supposed to table a report as to how did they identify and choose these categories. We haven't heard of that yet. And I'm hoping as and when we see that, we will get an idea as to how IRCC came up with these categories, and in future, if there are any expectations of any changes. At this point of time, there are no changes in the categories. They are still the same. And in my opinion, they will continue to be the same for at least foreseeable future. And if the changes are going to happen, they probably will remove, add, or change some NOC codes within the same categories. I do not see these categories being changed anytime soon. Why? Because STEM continues to be a big, huge, important factor. Canada is competing with the US to get some more investment from the IT companies. One way of doing that is by showing that we have a good pool or talent pool of IT candidates in Canada, and we do promote good work permit options, or we do provide good work permit options. That is their way of trying to attract more investment into the IT field within Canada. Trade is needed. Construction workers are needed. Healthcare workers are needed. They're desperate. Agriculture, transport, these are all critical areas in the categories in the businesses. And therefore, in my opinion, these categories should continue. And even if there are changes, they will be minor. Of course, French category is here to stay and rule. So if you're still thinking about Francophones, then maybe you can add that as your second language. Okay, we get to the questions now. Starting with the first one. Can we use the same POF letter for Ontario and post-ITA? In my opinion, you should get a new one. And the reason for that is when you would have submitted your Ontario application, your proof of funds letter would be quite old. When I'm saying quite old means because the nomination process from Ontario can take 3 to 5 months. And if you have submitted to Ontario a proof of fund letter, that could be 5 months older, and lot would have changed, or transactions would have happened in your account. So therefore, try and provide a more recent and updated proof of funds letter, probably within the 30 days of you trying to submit your application. Sham, sorry, there's no question there. Chatura says, I have 499 general, no category based. Do you think I will get a chance within the next few months? Yes, in my opinion, 499 is a very good score. We've already just discussed. Yeah, that's the pool breakdown. And if you're looking at 501 to 600, that's where the majority, big chunk is sitting at, about 8,000 people. And then 491 to 500, you only have 6,700 people. So collectively between, if I say 491 and above, you have roughly 15,000 people at this point of time. Well, it's a big number, mind you. But just the way IRCC was absolutely, I wouldn't say inspired, but were driven to reduce the scores, they did conduct the 21,000 invitations draws over a span of 2 weeks. I'm hoping and praying for some sort of a miracle, if you want to call it, this year as well. I have completed 2 programs in non-GTA and GTA. Can I choose non-GTA as a location of study in my application for Ontario Employer Job Offer International Student Stream? Well, if that is your eligible program, then yes, you can. You can always add a letter of explanation saying that this is the program based on which you are making your application. That will definitely give you those additional points that you're looking for a non-GTA location. No question there. Udit, sorry, no question there. Virtual Spirit says, what if we lose points for age after Ontario application submission and then the profile 2 expires? Can we create a new profile and send them the ID? First of all, if you have received an invitation from Ontario and then your age changes because of your birthday, definitely the scores are impacted, but it will not impact your Ontario application. It will continue. They will still proceed with your application. And your age points is not going to impact it. And if your profile expires during your Ontario application, then please create a new express entry profile. email Ontario with the details of your express entry profile, the new one, along with the job bank ID and the code, and also send them the copy of your expired profile information letter that you get from IRCC, letting them know that your previous profile is expired and you've created a new one. Okay, CRS score 480, not received OPNP recent draw. My NOC code is 21232, eligible under STEM. Last year got Ontario invite but didn't accept the invite. Is it okay if I create a new profile with another email? Well, I'm not sure why you did not receive it. Technically, you should have received it. But yes, if you wish to create a new express entry profile, you can absolutely do that. You don't have to use another email ID or whatever, create a new GCK account. Simply withdraw your express entry profile and create a new one. Pavitra says, my wife has spouse open work permit and is expiring by May midweek, and also she can land in Canada only by first week of May month. Will it be an issue receiving spouse open work permit? Can I extend, or can I be able to, hold on, am I eligible to stay in Canada at least for few days? My wife has an open work permit, is expiring by May mid. Can she land in Canada only by first week of May? Yes, she can land in Canada, no problem. Will there be any issue in receiving spouse open work permit? There will be no issue in receiving the spouse open work permit, but it will be valid only for a few days. And the border officer may tell you that as well. Will you be able to extend it? Well, you will be able to extend it depending on your work permit. So if your wife is coming on a spouse open work permit based on your work permit or your study permit, then your validity will determine whether you will be able to extend it or not. And that eligibility will remain based on your status in Canada. Hardik says, for inland spousal sponsorship, do we need to give biometrics if it was given for study permit in last 5 years, or wait for the request or book appointment upfront? First of all, for any kind of biometrics, you cannot give them upfront. You cannot book for them upfront. You have to wait for the request letter. Since October of 2023, IRCC has clarified that no longer will your old biometrics that you have given for your temporary residence be accepted for PR applications. That was given as an exemption during COVID. Now that obviously COVID is not there, they will again ask you to redo your biometrics for your PR application. So yes, you can wait to receive the request. Once you get the request, then you will be able to complete your biometrics for PR application. Is there any chance for trade category draw? I have CRS score of 408, expiring work permit in November. IRCC has not conducted a federal skilled trade category draw in a very, very, very long time. I think almost 3 years now. I haven't seen a federal skilled trade category draw. Any chance for it? Well, if they haven't done it in 3 years, what are the chances they will do it now? It's IRCC. They can choose to do whatever they wish to do. They're already conducting a category-based draws, which has trade categories. So probably that is one of the reasons why they're holding back on that. There is no way of saying whether they will conduct one anytime soon or not. For study permit application, I gave work experience letter as supporting documents where JD was vague. Now for express entry, I have got another one from the same employer with JD more indicative of NOC. Would this change be misrepresentation? Well, if your previous one was vague and now it is more descriptive, then it is not misrepresentation. You can always clarify that. However, earlier, if you said something, for example, that you were a doctor, now you are trying to give a job description of an engineer. That is a huge mismatch. I mean, a doctor can certainly not be an engineer, right? So if it is not this kind of a mismatch, then you should be fine. Rajveer says, can I apply for a master's program and be eligible for another postgraduate work permit after my current postgraduate work permit expires? No. Postgraduate work permit is granted only once in a lifetime. The extensions that were being given was only a COVID measure. Now there are no more extensions. So after your postgraduate work permit expires, if you choose to study again, whether it's master's or any other program, you will no longer be eligible for another postgraduate work permit. Nothing there. Can we use the same experience letter for Ontario and post ITA? Yes, work experience letter you can use for Ontario, and the same letter you can use post ITA for IRCC. It's just that you need It's just that you will need to add more recent pay stubs. You will need to add probably your T4s or income tax returns and bank statements, but that's what you will need to do. I have mentioned some experience in non-tech in my express entry file. I recently got the notifications of interest. Can I just not mention my non-tech experience while submitting file and change the e-profile as well? But why would you want to do that? There is no harm in having a non-tech work experience in your profile. Don't try to make these changes because you want to hide something of that sort. Ontario is pretty simple. Ontario says, please disclose all your work experience within the last 10 years. Whether it is tech or non-tech, they are not trying to ask you that only disclose tech or don't disclose this. They're simply saying disclose all work experience within the last 10 years. So please mention it. If you don't have documentation for it, then of course you can always say that I don't have the documentation for it or I'm not able to obtain it. But please do disclose your work experience the way it is. Do not try to change the e-profile or hide it. Of course, in your e-profile, you don't have to claim points for it if you don't need it. You can always show it in the personal history. But please truthfully disclose all your work experience as is appropriate and required. Nothing there. Chance of 475 in STEM draw. Well, it is possible. It all depends on the number of invitations and how many people are there in the pool. I have landed a few months ago, but I am not filing taxes this time. Will this affect my ability to apply for citizenship and extend my PR? Why won't you file taxes? If you're already a permanent resident in Canada in 2023, then even if it is zero income, please do file the taxes. And yes, it may impact your citizenship application at a later date. If you did not draw any income, if you did not make any income, that's already fine. You can still file a nil income tax, that's all right. But do file your taxes, it is only in your favor. My Saskatchewan application status is application received since 24th of July. Reason behind slow process for Saskatchewan application. Well, there is no specific reason. Saskatchewan applications historically are known to be slow. The processing is known to be slow. I have seen many applications taking even 8 to 12 months for processing. So there is no particular reason behind it. But yeah, the processing is quite slow there. Nothing there. B. Patel says, I got admission for May 24 intake in Lambton, which is in Mississauga. Will she be able to get 3 years postgraduate work permit with these new rules? I am not sure what you are referring to, but let's see what it says here. As far as postgraduate work permit is concerned, it says that who is eligible for a longer postgraduate work permit, right? This will take, starting 15th of February, a longer 3-year postgraduate work permit will be available to those who are graduating from a master's degree program that is less than 2 years and who meets all other PGWP criteria. So earlier masters, a lot of people complete masters in 1 year. So they have a 1-year masters, they have a 14-month masters, 16-month masters. Some of them were getting work permit as per their study period. Some of them got only 1 year, somebody got only 18 months or whatever. Now they have said for people who are completing their masters, regardless of how long the master's program is, they will still get a 3-year work permit. Further, the length of postgraduate work permits for programs other than masters will continue to align with the length of the study program to a maximum of 3 years. So if you are doing a 1-year program, you will get a 1-year work permit. Graduates of programs that are at least 2 years in length at a postgraduate work permit eligible designated learning institutions are eligible for a 3-year postgraduate work permits, as are the graduates of master degree. So if you are completing a 2-year program, then you will still be eligible for a 3-year work permit. Other than that, if your study duration is less than 2 years, then you may get a work permit only for the duration of your period of study. So that has already been clarified and indicated here. I have 428, 453 in 3 months, points in NOC 72205. Ontario draw in January with this knock code with a point range of 350 and 424. Any chances for another draw? Well, I'm sure there will be another draw, for sure. For a fact, there will be another draw. But if your score is at 428, then even if Ontario is to conduct another draw, they probably will not include 428. Why? Because they are operating 1 point less than the last express entry draw, which in this case was for trade categories. So you might be eligible directly in a trade category draw from IRCC if your knock code is included there. If not, then you probably will have to find a way of reducing your CRS. I mean, imagine every time you're trying to figure out how to increase your CRS, but in this case, you might have to reduce your CRS so that you can fit into the range. So the best thing to do is to keep an eye on the next trade category draw from express entry. Once you've identified the trade category draw from express entry, then just make sure that you fall below that number. Your CRS score falls below that number so that when Ontario conducts its draw, then you probably have a chance of being invited. I'm on a postgraduate work permit. Completed diploma can sponsor my wife even after rules. Well, the thing is, the rules have not come into effect yet. IRCC has said, and this is where it is. Let me see if I can find this again. Let's remove this. Now, it says here, changes to open work permit eligibility. It says in the coming weeks. This has not been implemented yet. In the coming weeks, eligibility for open work permit for spouses and common law partners of international students will be updated. This is not in effect yet. So if you are an international student in Canada and you wish to sponsor your spouse for an open work permit, you may still do so. There is no problem. As of right now, there are no restrictions. You can still apply for an open work permit for your spouse. And if you're looking to do that, please do that as soon as possible before the changes come into play. Thank you for that. Okay. Received NOI Ontario with spouse not accompanying but added family 3 as have kid born in Canada. Can I add family details in Ontario? Does this mean accompanying? Can I change my spouse? Okay, there is too many. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't really understand what you're asking me. But if you're asking me the size of your family will be 3, even if your child is born in Canada. And you would have to disclose, or rather, you would have to include your funds, your proof of funds for a family of 3. Now, as far as adding your spouse is concerned, well, if you're filing your application as spouse non-accompanying, once you get the nomination, you will have to check with Ontario if they will allow you to add your spouse to your application. And if they do, then you may do so, and then you can make the changes to your express entry profile so that you can then add your spouse to your application. Any Punjab Chandigarh appointments? Unfortunately, not this time. This time it's probably more towards this part of India. I'm only in Hyderabad, Surat, and Hyderabad, Surat, and Ahmedabad. That is where I am for the in-person appointments. If you're looking to make an appointment, then this is the link. Hyderabad, all of this week, in-person appointments are open. Surat is 16th and 17th. Ahmedabad is 18th and 19th. Hopefully, we'll come back to the other parts of the country on the next trip. Do you see Ontario's human capital priorities draw with scores ranging 465 to 475 in the near future? Well, it's a distinct possibility, though I would be not going as low as 465 at this point of time. And the reason for that is because those numbers have not been cleared for a very long time. So you can imagine there will be a lot of people in the tech draw or in the tech categories within that range. First of all, IRCC has to conduct a STEM category draw, which is within the range of 480s and below. Once they do that, then whenever the next draw that Ontario conducts, then they will keep a 1 point less than their high, than the express entry draw, and then that would be the high point. And then it will all depend on how many invitations they wish to issue and how many people are there in the pool. But if you'll ask me just on the technicality of 465 to 475, yes, of course, it's a possibility. But we'll have to wait and see if it really happens or not. Nothing there. My general score is 533. Work permit is expiring 25th of February. What should I do next if my work permit expires? Can I apply for a visitor's visa before it expires, or should I go on restoration? Why would you go on restoration? I mean, if your work permit is expiring on the 25th of February, I know a lot of people talk about fake extensions. It's entirely your choice if you wish to do that. That basically will give you, I mean, what does fake extension mean? Fake extension means that though you are not eligible to apply for an extension of work permit, people do it anyways, because what that does is it's a loophole in the law that they claim the implied status. Now, when you claim the implied status, you can continue working until the decision is made on your work permit application. Now, the time for the decision could be a few weeks, could be few days, could be few months. In some cases, it could be, let's say, I don't know, 2 weeks or 4 weeks, and it could actually go to 4 to 5 months. After the decision is made, which would be a refusal, you would then be out of status. And that point of time, you can restore your status and change it to a visitor. Alternatively, you can leave Canada and go. If you have a TRV, you can return back. And when you'll be returning back, you'll be coming to as a visitor. Now, I know we've been speaking about a lot about this fake extension bit, but one thing that people have to be very, very careful about is that fake extension is safe only until the fact that IRCC gives you a refusal. Refusal on the fact that we do not consider you to be eligible and therefore we are refusing your application. If they're giving you a refusal, then the day they give you the refusal, that day you lose your status. And from that date, you have 90 days to restore your status. Alternatively, if IRCC cancels your application under the pretext that you were not eligible in the first place, therefore your application is cancelled, it's ineligible application. In that situation, you have lost your status from the date your work permit, the original work permit, expired. So from that date onwards, if IRCC has taken 4 months to make the decision of cancelling your application, it means you lost your status on that first day when your work permit expired. Means you are now out of status for the last 4 months. Means you cannot restore your status. Means you are now an illegal alien in country, and therefore you should leave Canada immediately. So that could actually jeopardize your situation in Canada. And therefore, if you are submitting any application, that could also become an issue there. So please be very careful when you go or opt for fake extension. I know we have spoken about this plenty of times, but there is always this one thing that IRCC can come back to. And if you are not eligible in the first place, then they can always cancel your application. If they cancel it, then that's a problem. I got ITA in December under CEC. Can I change proof of funds to 0 from 15,000 that I mentioned in express entry, and will it have any implication? Yes, you can do it. You can mention it as 0. Plus, please be sure that you are eligible in Canadian Experience class. And in that case, there will be no documentary requirement for proof of funds. Alternatively, if you want to leave it as 15,000, and that is also not a problem, you will just upload a plain explanation document stating that you are eligible under Canadian Experience class and therefore you're exempt from proof of funds, and you don't have to show any documents or proof of funds. Uh, 506 CRS score, postgraduate expires mid-March, working on application to submit closed work permit. What should I do? Wait until Feb 14 as you said. I said Feb 14? I honestly don't remember saying anything about Feb 14. But if you are, okay, of course, I know what you're talking about. Feb, of course, you can wait till Feb 14. Rather, you can wait till 1 or 2 days before the expiry of your work permit, which is mid-March in your case. Not only Feb 14, you can wait even for the weeks after that. If your work permit is expiring mid-March, you can apply for extension with your closed work permit application right until 1, 2, 3, 4 days before the expiry. The law says that as long as your work permit, the original work permit, is valid, on the day you make your new application for extension, you're fine. You will be on implied status. It just should not expire. So yes, absolutely wait for 14th of Feb, wait for 28th of Feb, or even earlier or even later than that. So you'll be fine. There's no problem with that. Nothing there. Got PPR. Can I ask for extension for PPR for 4 months? Well, you can certainly ask for extension. It's not always that IRCC gives you the extension. But if you have exceptional circumstances, for example, you're saying you're on a ship job. So by all means, explain to IRCC why you are asking for extension. Explain the circumstances surrounding your situation, and I'm quite certain they would give it to you. My NOC code is 70012. Does it come in Ontario PNP skill trade? I don't remember it on top of my head. You can always check the Ontario's website and you can see what NOC codes they have invited in the past under the skill trade. That will give you an idea. If I haven't showed some Indian work experience during my study permit, can I still use the experience for my PR application? Well, think about it. Why didn't you show it in your study permit application? For a lot of people, they use this excuse that I was confused. Well, no, you cannot be confused because it straight away simply asks you your work experience. Some people say my agent did not show it, or some people say I did not show it because I thought I will not get a study permit. Whatever be the reason, you chose not to disclose truthfully information in your application which was asked explicitly from you. Now it works in your favor to show that work experience, so you want to use it. Well, if you want to use it, by all means do, but it is at a risk. It comes at a cost. It comes at the risk that if IRCC is to compare your information in your previous application of a study permit now with your express entry application, and they realize that you did not disclose this work experience earlier, and this is material information that you did not disclose. This amounts to misrepresentation. This information, had you disclosed to IRCC, IRCC may have not approved your study permit, considering what that work experience was about. So this is material misrepresentation, and based on this, if IRCC chooses, then your application will be refused, may be refused, and you may also get a ban of 5 years. So please be very careful when you try to hide things in your application and then now you suddenly want to use it because it works in your favor. So that's a risk you will be taking. It's entirely up to you. Creating multiple profiles of Ontario, a good idea? Well, you can if the system allows you to. If you are eligible, you will get invited in the program. My work permit expiring in August 24 was extended to January after renewing my passport. Was extended till January 27. Okay? After renewing my passport, I got my probably oversight on their part. I am concerned they will reject my new work permit if I apply TRV. If they have given you the work permit, then you have it. So don't worry about it. Absolutely go ahead and apply your TRV. They will not cancel or revoke your work permit because it has already been issued. So please do not worry about it. You are extremely, extremely lucky. Just go with it, right? I mean, luck is in your favor, luck is in your side. Just ride the wave. I've applied for PR. Do I have to stay in Ontario for some time if I've applied after receiving OINP? Well, if you have applied for, do I have to stay in Ontario for some time if I have applied after receiving Ontario? Well, technically, if you are applying for a PR after getting a nomination, then you should reside in that province. It's your ethical and moral responsibility because that is the basis on which you have received your nomination. But if your question is that you applied for PR, you haven't really got it yet, and at this point of time, you want to move around, you want to travel, you can absolutely travel. Changing provinces is entirely up to you. You shouldn't be looking to do that because if you're changing your address, you need to inform IRCC. And if you'll inform IRCC you're in a different province and you move from Ontario, then IRCC will start wondering as to your intent of residing in Ontario. And that might then create some issues. So suggestion is not to change provinces at all. I received notification of interest from Ontario. My NOC code is 2221 and I have only 5 months experience in tech in Canada and 1 year experience in Canada as HR manager. If I accept my notification of interest and apply, will I be rejected? Well, the requirement is that if you have a notification of interest from Ontario, then in the primary NOC code, you should have at least 1 year of work experience, whether it's inside Canada or outside Canada. If you are a Canadian experience class, then your work experience should be within the last 3 years. If you are a federal skilled worker, then your work experience should be within the last 5 years. If you do not have 1 year of experience in that NOC code based on which you have been invited, then I'm afraid you are not eligible in the human capital priority stream. I am with IT background, but for CAC, I have worked at a restaurant as a supervisor for 4 months and later 8 months in IT. Will that work? Yes, that is not a problem. For express entry, you can have a combination of work experiences as long as they are both under a valid NOC and paid. 489 CRS score chance in CAC. How soon? I don't know how soon. We'll have to wait and watch. At this point of time, 489 is a bit of a stretch. We'll have to just wait and watch as to how they conduct their draws as we move into the future. 493 work permit is expiring in June. If I remove spouse, 510 advice. If I was in your place, I would do it. Why not? While 510 is a definite possibility, 493 is a bit of a stretch. It of course can happen. I do not know whether it will happen before June or not. But if you are willing to wait until, let's say, May, then you might be able to do it. Otherwise, let's say somewhere first week of May, if things are still not going in your favor, you may then choose to have your spouse unaccompany you in your application. Go with your express entry with a score of 510 by that time. And once you become a PR, then by all means sponsor your spouse. I got admission in public-private institution for May intake, got visa before Jan 24. Will I be eligible for postgraduate work permit? I think you will be eligible for postgraduate work permit because the condition here, let's read this condition. This condition about postgraduate work permit eligibility for public-private partnership college programs is who is eligible for postgraduate work permit after graduating? Well, international students currently enrolled will remain eligible for postgraduate work permit if they meet other program eligibility. It says currently enrolled. So you are currently enrolled, you already received your visa, so you should not have any problem here at all. Yeah, you got the visa before Jan, you'll be fine. I claimed 2 Canadian credentials, GTA. I think we did that already. Can I choose the non-GTA? Yes, you can choose the non-GTA. Any PNP options for marketing job? Well, I mean, I don't remember on top of my head. You can absolutely go through the Ontario's website and see what is applicable for you. CRS 490, should I enter EE without enough proof of fund for FSW? Does co-op extension after postgraduate work permit application count for CEC? Co-op work experience does not count as valid work experience. Rather, any work experience gained while you were on a study permit, while you were studying in Canada, or if you were any part of your work experience which was part of your study program, that does not give you Canadian experience class points, or rather that is not considered as eligible work experience. With 490, should I enter express entry without enough proof of fund? Yes, you can absolutely enter the express entry pool even as a federal skilled worker. For proof of fund, you will have to figure out how you're going to arrange that and then accordingly explain IRCC as to where did the money come into your account from. Guys, please do not do any more super chats. I will not be able to complete all of them because I have a very, very bad stuffy nose, and at any point of time, I might not be able to continue any more than this. Hassan says, what if my FSW points are 66, but I got invited for Ontario's human capital? My CRS points are 414. Will my application be rejected at the end? Well, if your federal skilled worker points are 66, how do you have the express entry profile? The system will not let you have. The system will cancel your profile. The system will make your profile ineligible. So I am not sure how you have 66 and still have an express entry profile. Maybe there is something you need to check, whether there is something information which is mentioned incorrectly in your express entry profile, or whether you are calculating it incorrectly. So as far as human capital Ontario is concerned, they might still, because they are not calculating your eligibility in express entry. IRCC will. So Ontario might still give you the nomination depending on whether you are meeting their conditions and requirement. After you get the nomination and you come into the express entry and you get your 600 points and you proceed with your PR application, IRCC will not give you your PR, because if you're not eligible in express entry, then they will simply refuse your application. So please check your express entry profile if you mentioned everything correctly. Can I apply as visitor after applying for fake extension? Well, you can always apply for change of status to a visitor by applying for a visitor record at any point of time. Yes. If I have 6 months in computer programmer and 6 months as software engineer, I got notification of interest. Should I apply for Ontario's tech draw? Well, if this 2 different periods of work experience, both of them were in Canada, then you might be able to apply, depending whether this work experience were within the last 3 years. If this was outside Canada, then you will not be able to do it. Spouse non-accompanying work permits are expiring in May and will apply for extension. If we receive invitation soon and get AOR, can they refuse work permit extension before approval PR? In that case, how can wife can stay in Canada? Well, the point is, when you're applying for your extension of work permit, are you eligible on that at that point of time or not? If you become eligible for the work permit extension after you have applied for work permit extension, then IRCC can most certainly refuse your work permit applications. As far as how can your wife stay in Canada, you can apply for a visitor record to continue staying in Canada. Nothing here. Okay, the last few guys, please don't do any more super chats. I will not be able to complete them. Just doing the last few questions now. Application for postgraduate work permit would be next month, but I am medically inadmissible because of the cause. What's the best strategy to continue in Canada and then get PR? Oh boy. Well, the idea should be to still, it all depends what your medical inadmissibility is. I can't really answer the question in this manner here because I don't know what the inadmissibility is. If your inadmissibility is due to the excessive demand threshold, then you should wait. You should still continue with your PR application. Once you get the procedural fairness letter from IRCC regarding your medical inadmissibility, at that point of time, you will need to check what are their areas of concern and how much are you exceeding the threshold by. And then you have to mitigate the concerns by providing them with the alternatives. But it's very difficult to tell you at this point of time because medical inadmissibility can be for safety, security, and excessive demand. But if it is for safety, security, then there is nothing much you can do about it. You're inadmissible, you're inadmissible. But if it is to do with your excessive demand, then you might be able to mitigate that issue. Any chance for contract job to apply for Ontario PNP? I don't know what you mean, contract job, T2. But yeah, for Ontario's criteria, kindly refer to their website. They have all their program details mentioned everything is mentioned in detail about the program criteria. 8th Feb Tech CRS 471 Canadian work experience will be 1 year by March 27. Will my application be rejected? CRS 471 based on 1 year Canadian work experience. I don't understand your question. Oh, you have received your notification of interest sooner than having completed your work experience. Well, you might be able to get along. You might be able to get away with it, but that depends entirely on IRC, on Ontario's visa officer. Let me just check one more time about their work experience. I think it is more to do with on the day you submit your application. Let me just show you what I'm trying to say. Here, this is the Ontario website. Let me just remove this from here. Here it says very clearly, your work experience must have been obtained within the last 5 years from the date of submitting your application to Ontario. Okay, so with this, and this is for federal skilled worker, if you look at the Canadian experience class, it says your work experience must have been obtained within the last year from the date of submitting your application to Ontario. Well, you might be able to get away with it. You just have to make sure that you submit your application after you have completed your period of work experience, not before that. Oh, we have a different screen going on there. Sorry about that. Okay. Guys, please don't do super chats. I will not be able to complete it. Thank you for. Does Ontario send invitations without checking that I have completed 1 year or not in tech? Yes. I mean, it is not Ontario's job to check whether you have completed 1 year or not. They do not have the access to your complete Express Entry profile. They have access to very limited information on your Express Entry profile. They can only see your primary NOC code. And if your primary NOC code is something which is matching with their criteria, they will send it to you. It is your responsibility before you submit your application to see if you are eligible and if you meet all the criteria requirements. I have received nomination certificate in process of submitting the documents. Now received interest letter from Ontario in my e-profile. Which pathway in this will get me PR quick? Well, non-express entry route will take a very long time. After you get the nomination, just the PR application processing time is 18 to 24 months. So definitely the express entry pathway is much, much faster. My question was skipped. I don't know what your question was. Don't see it. I'm just scrolling up. Nope, my friend, I don't have your question here. I'm sorry. No, nothing there. We cancelled our study and open work permit extension and decided to apply for postgraduate work permit. We cancelled our study and open work permit extension. But our portal still shows applications are submitted. Can we go ahead and apply postgraduate work permit or wait till status will change? I am absolutely confused with your question. We cancelled our study and open work permit. Okay, you cancelled your study permit extension and decided to apply for postgraduate work permit, but your portal still shows the applications are submitted. Can we go ahead and apply for postgraduate work? I mean, you can apply for your postgraduate work permit if you're eligible, but the very fact is that if you have cancelled your study permit, it basically means that now that you're applying for your postgraduate work permit, you will not be on an implied status. So you cannot start working until you get the approval for your postgraduate work permit. Please bear that in mind. But yes, you can do it. In Ontario Human Capital Tech Draw listed NOC, should primary NOC, when you write questions like this and you expect me to understand, I just cannot. For Tech Draw listed NOC, should primary NOC, no idea. I have absolutely no idea, but if you're asking me about the primary NOC code, yes, your primary NOC code and express entry profile should be the NOC code that Ontario is inviting under their whatever the program is. So in this case, if it is the tech draw, then yes, your primary NOC code should be included in your express entry profile, which is the same as to who they're inviting. Received notification of interest under the healthcare draw at CRS 420, booked IELTS before the draw, now got result. CRS at 465 with new IELTS. Will this impact OINP due to CRS change? Advice. Simply don't change your IELTS. Just continue with the old one. Continue with 420. Because now if your score has gone up, then simply don't use the new IELTS. Just go with the old one. Okay. Okay, which one is this? I received Ontario Tech Draw, however, recently got laid off. Can I still accept Ontario's notification of interest? Moreover, I have 3 years of experience as a web developer. Yes, you can absolutely continue, even if you have gotten laid off, because your Ontario's human capital priority stream has got no relationship with your employment, current employment or job offer. So if you're not working, you do not have a job, you got laid off, God forbid, then it is not a problem. You can still continue with your application for Ontario. Haven't got notification of interest. CRS 471, all proven. Again, I just cannot understand what you're trying to say. If you did not get your notification of interest, was it in the past that you have received a notification of interest and you did not accept it, or something went wrong over there? In that case, you may have not been able to get through another one. Simply just withdraw your profile and create a new one. Also, when you're doing this, please make sure your primary NOC code is 21231. Sometimes people assume that they have created the right, they've created the express entry profile correctly, but they make these small errors, which results in them not being invited. Mahendra says, submitted my spouse open work permit on November, still waiting on decisions. Will the new rule affect my spouse open work permit? No, it will not impact because the new rules will be effective the date whenever they are implemented. All previous applications will continue to be processed, so it will not impact you. All right, guys, last question. I have an active express entry profile and I'm currently unemployed. Will this count against me if I apply for a visitor visa? No, it will not count against you if you are unemployed and you have an express entry profile. At the end of the day, when you are applying for a visitor visa, you have to show strong ties to your home country, past travel history, strong finances, income is always important. And all of these factors will determine whether you are a person who will return back to your home country after the period of stay. Right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Once again, this is the link to make an appointment one-on-one for your consultations, whether it's virtual, whether it's here in Hyderabad, whether it's in Surat, whether it's in Ahmedabad. We are there in all these three places for in-person. Of course, you can always book an appointment, which is for a virtual consultation. And of course, for seminars, free seminars happening in Surat and Ahmedabad, 17th of February in Surat, 18th of February in Ahmedabad. The link to register is in the description. If you have friends or families in Surat or Ahmedabad, have them come over. We're going to have a lot of chat, a lot of fun, a lot of interesting conversations about this. And of course, we will be answering all the questions that they may have at that point of time. Thank you so much for joining in. It was great coming back again and doing this live once again. I will do this again, of course, next week. Until then, stay tuned to any updates that happen, and I shall see you then. Good night.